All right, good morning, everyone. Andrew Kircher here with Port Huron Museums. I'm going to do my best to talk kind of loud, and eventually, in just a little bit here, I'm going to flip the camera around. I'll talk real close to it because I know it's a little breezy out, and the wind might catch some of what I'm saying. But it is a really nice day out. It's nice and sunny. I broke into my spring wardrobe here. Oh yeah, it's quite a bit breezy. Sorry about that. I'm going to flip the camera around right away so now you can hopefully hear what I'm saying. Good morning, Todd. Good morning. We are right now on a spot that everybody in Port Huron has been to. This is kind of the main artery through town. There's Pine Grove. We are in a road that used to go through here, but is now a cul-de-sac. So the road just kind of ends in a big circle here. There's a lot of vacant land. Thanks, Todd. So we are right by the Blue Water Bridge. We're just south of the Blue Water Bridge. I think today we're going to end north of the Blue Water Bridge. But I want to talk a little bit about why there is so much vacant land here. This is an area I think I mentioned in the last video that I grew up. I spent through first and second grade on McPherson Street, just down there a couple blocks. I remember right there was a family video. It was our video rental store of choice. And I got a red light. We're going to take the opportunity to cross here. It turned into a mattress depot, and it's gone now. And there's the Monroe School back there. We'll probably cover that in its own video. But there's a huge amount of vacant land, and there's at least an explanation why. There's the old, I think it was Jack Smith's grocery store. I remember going there as a kid. Well, we are on this big vacant triangle. Anybody worth their salt and Port Huron who remembers anything from the 90s and before, you will remember what was here on this triangle of land. You can see it goes a long way back. Now this is all because of the Bridge Plaza expansion project. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Blue Water Bridge today. I think that might wind up being a two-parter. But there was some pretty significant work done about a decade, 15 years ago, especially in kind of the aftermath of 9/11, in where we had to, the federal government was looking to expand the Blue Water Bridge Plaza. So this is the kind of west end of the Blue Water Bridge. Can't really see where it actually crosses into Canada yet. There's quite a few trees over there. But there's the, Customs, Border Patrol, processing, toll booths, that sort of thing, all up there. Now the Blue Water Bridge, this wasn't here when the Blue Water Bridge was built. The bridge was built back in 1938. But obviously there's been quite a few changes to the landscape since then. While this was kind of the main artery through town and the region, it's still the main artery through town. In the 1950s, we saw the beginning of the Interstate Highway Project. And Michigan is the terminus of 94 and 69. They both come to an end right here in town, ended up on the bridge. So obviously there was quite a bit of rerouting done then. And again, there was this planned rerouting that was going to be done after 9/11 with the Bridge Plaza expansion. The feds paid like $100 million, tore down something like 80-90 homes. This is all well within like living recent memory. I'm sure there's probably people watching who maybe lost their house or were forced to move. And the idea was all of this was going to be brought down to ground level and greatly expanded. Well, one thing led to another. Things kind of got stalled. It is an ongoing project, and I don't really know exactly what's going to happen. For a while, I think MDOT and the federal government were paying the city of Port Huron some money every year because of the lost economic incentives. And just within the last, I'd say probably 5 years, they rerouted again the way that 94 ends, added in a new little strip of road here. So we are at Harker and Pine Grove. I've gotten some requests to focus on road signs when we come to one so you guys can tell where we are. And there are some little holdouts. There's a Troy dry cleaner, although I don't think that one is open anymore. But not much else here. But I want to talk about what was here, because it was, talk about an iconic building. This was the site of London's Dairy. I think that every time I drive by, my mouth waters just a little bit for a strawberry malt, because they had the dairy bar right here as well. So just a little on the history of the London clan. All right, I think we're good to go across here. London started back in 1936 with Glen and Clyde London. There were a lot of dairies in the thumb. Dairies were much more local in the 1930s. But it was 1943 that they moved here onto Pine Grove and built. There were some great big tanks in that area. And this corner right up here was where that storefront was. Now, it kind of continued as a family business until 1981. In 1981, they did something I think is really cool. They went to employee ownership. So the London family gave it over to the employees who worked there. They figured, you guys work here, you know what is best. And they continued to operate. They sold all sorts of dairy products, chips and dips and ice cream and milk. If you like stuff from London's, tell me what your favorite London's dairy product was in the comments. I'm sure everybody has one. In 1983, just a couple of years after that, they were almost driven into bankruptcy by Kroger, of all people. It's because Kroger was selling milk at a loss. They were trying to undercut London's. They knew London couldn't compete on volume with Kroger. And eventually the Supreme Court, there was a lawsuit. I think it was the state Supreme Court ordered like London's and Aldi's and some of the other grocery stores to quit selling milk at a loss. All right, so you can see the bridges up there now in the background. We're just kind of walking through what's now a vacant field. And this would have been, actually, I think there was a road right around here. There was a road on the side, if memory serves correctly. I'm sure people will tell me in the comments. And again, this is the site of London's Dairy. It's kind of sad that we don't have anything to really look at. So I'm going to walk up here, and we're going to walk under the bridge here, in one of the entrance places for the toll workers and things like that. I was reading a little bit about them last night, and there was a pretty neat story I was reading. There was a guy that some people might remember. He was governor named John Swainson. Oh, there's a little bit of mud. So heads up if you follow this walk or you walk through this field. Maybe don't wear your best shoes. I got my walking shoes on today. They're very comfortable. I highly recommend District 43, the shoe store downtown. If you get the chance to go there when everything reopens. I had been looking for a pair of kind of walking boots like these. They're very comfortable. They kind of were able to find exactly what I was looking for. So these are my everyday go-to. I don't care if I walk in a muddy field, because they are comfortable, very nice shoes. Anyway, that's District 43, local business. Oh, there's my sister is driving by. Hi, Ellie. And she likes these histories. She's got that pretty distinctive Mini Cooper, so hard to miss her. Anyway, so where were we? We're back on the sidewalk now. So we're now kind of underneath the bridge. There's, of course, two spans to the bridge. The second one was built in the 1990s to kind of add, keep up with the additional traffic, just because of the growth of things, as well as things like NAFTA. There was increased amount of trade between the United States and Canada. You know, one of the other things that gets me, so this doesn't really have a ton to do with history. Also, there's no wind under here. Hopefully it's not too echoey. Think about this. How many of you in the comments remember the 1970s? All right, it's before I was born, but I bet there's quite a few of you who might have like distinct memories of the 1970s. Think about this. There are now twice as many people alive as there were in the 1970s. The world population has doubled. So do you think that does it seem like there are more people than there were in the 70s? I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, it's not all localized. Obviously, the population of Port Huron hasn't doubled, but population of the world. So food for thought there. All right, so again, we're now at the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol entrance to the bridge. And I was starting to talk about John Swainson, who was governor of the state of Michigan for 2 years in 1960 to 62. He was born in Canada, born in Windsor, and he moved to Port Huron when he was 2 years old. And there's the door. Maybe a lot of people didn't even realize there was a door here. There's a 100-year-old MDOT sign. So Swainson moved here again when he was 2 and lived in Port Huron. He became governor in the 60s. And one of the ways they paid for the bridge is a lot like the way that they paid for the Mackinac Bridge, where they took out some big bonds and they paid for it with tolls. Well, they did some renovation work, and during his tenure in 1961, the bridge had actually been paid for. There was nothing left to pay. The bonds had been paid off. And so he used an executive order to eliminate the toll on the bridge. There was a 25-cent toll. He got rid of it, which obviously that seems pretty cool for anyone who uses the bridge. The thing that's pretty unusual, I think, about that is Swainson's own dad, who lived in Port Huron, was a toll collector. That's cold. I mean, I guess that's good, responsible government. But yeah, he basically fired his own dad from his job by cutting the toll positions. There's some other cool things about him as this kind of Port Huron associated governor. He fought in World War II. He stepped on a landmine in France and had his legs blown off. And he learned to walk with prosthetics. Some people couldn't even tell. But he kind of overcame that, what for a lot of people would be an absolute disaster. Later on in life, he was known to even kind of make some jokes about it. He was always a big fan of the Highland Games in Alma. And he'd go to Alma, and he said, he went and said, I have to apologize for not wearing a kilt. I don't have the legs for it. So he also later on in life, he lost to George Romney in 1962. George Romney was, of course, of AMC fame, and Mitt Romney's dad. And it makes the only time in U.S. history when a governor that was born in Canada was replaced by a governor that was born in Mexico. So there's just a little piece of trivia. All right, we are back in the wind, so I'm going to hold the camera a little bit closer here again today. Again, there is quite a bit more. This was a whole neighborhood right here as well, and it's unclear what's going to happen to this. If they're going to build the Bridge Plaza, if they're not, a lot of businesses, a lot of homes, a lot of tax revenue was unfortunately lost. I'd say this is probably the biggest change to the city in the last 10, 20 years, because this is pretty monumental change to just have a big muddy field where there used to be houses and houses and houses and businesses. So kind of sad, but these changes happen. I'll be interested to see again if the Bridge Plaza expands out or not. They talked about bringing all of this down to ground level. I don't know, I kind of hope they don't. That seems like you'd have a giant truck stop in the middle of town, and I certainly wouldn't want to live right across from it. But there are a couple of homes here that I really like that I want to point out too, because I am a sucker for Second Empire. There's a couple of homes with a mansard roof. So there's one right there. And again, we are at the corner of 10th and Elmwood. We'll walk up to the sign here. Not a lot of people out today, which is good. We're still remaining socially distant, but it is a nice sunny day out to go for a walk. So again, we are at 10th and Elmwood. Sorry, the sun's right in the way. And we can see this beautiful little mansard roof, this little tiny square house, which I think is pretty cool. And there's another one up here, a few more houses down. You know, we really think about the evolution of houses from these great big places to homes that are a little bit smaller because they use more multi-purpose rooms instead of having a sitting room and a parlor as separate. By the 1920s, by the 20th century, you've got like a living room. And that's something you see in kind of a philosophy of design for housing design. So these are sometimes, even if they're a little bit smaller, a lot more comfortable to actually live in, which ultimately, isn't that what a house is for, right? All right, so here we've got this beautiful yellow little cube with, again, that nice mansard roof. Looks like you've got an enclosed porch off the front and the back. It's pretty cool. There is one more place I wanted to look at, because again, in this like the forbidden zone here, this swath of neighborhood that's gone, there's one house, this dentist's office, that held out, and that's a great example of constructive reuse. So that's a great thing to talk about when you're talking about historic buildings, is adaptive reuse like that is a way where you can use a historic building, maybe not what it was originally intended for, but you can still keep the building, you can still keep the facade, the outside appearance. You see this a ton in Europe, and that's something lots of people will say. If you ask anybody about old buildings and houses and you mention something at Europe, you know, we're at 10th and Church here, everyone will say, oh, in Europe they don't tear down their old buildings. Well, it's kind of true. They've seen pretty big wave of reconstruction because a lot of Europe was bombed flat 75 years ago. But a lot of buildings they keep around, even if they don't use them for their original purpose. There's, you know, for example, a lot of churches that have repurposed into homes and stores. So here is this dentist's office. I was always really worried when I was back in like middle school and high school. I knew that I really wanted to see a house like this saved, and now it's kind of the only one on the block completely surrounded. It's got a couple of side porches there. And going back to what we talked about, I'm not sure exactly how it worked out. They obviously held out, didn't get torn down, but I can tell you it probably was not because it was a historic home. So this is the E.C. Williams house. E.C. Williams built this double house in 1890-91 in the village of Fort Gratiot, where we are now. He published the Fort Gratiot Sun, a newspaper circulated primarily among railroad passengers and crew. In 1894, the village merged with the city of Port Huron, and it was renamed the Port Huron Sun. In 1894, he helped the charter the local chapter of the International Typographical Union of North America. Rare late 19th century example of a duplex. Well, so it's a nice little informative sign that maybe a lot of people have not read before. You can see it is a nice duplex. It's got two doors. So you could have one on each side. It's nice and symmetrical. Style-wise, it's kind of clearly got a little bit of Queen Anne influence with the embarkation there. So that's the pattern of the shingles on this belt line here. And there's more up top as well, using a contrasting pattern. You know, I've never, Carolyn says the dentist is beautiful inside. I've never been to this dentist before, so maybe those of his patients can comment. It is a nice house. It's well maintained. I'm glad to see it used. I'm glad to see that it has been saved from all of that work. So again, we can get one more shot here of, again, another just big area of neighborhood that somebody 25, 30 years ago would be amazed if they stepped foot down here and they saw that this is now just a vacant field. So I guess this is the kind of silver lining, is that all is not lost. Some of these places have been saved, and that's really cool to hear about. My sister, who's evidently made it to wherever she was going from earlier in the video, just said she wants to see a Trader Joe's. I don't know, maybe. What else would people want to see? So if it doesn't become the Bridge Plaza, it kind of leaves us the question, what do we do? Do we open it up to like cookie cutter new McMansions? How do you try and recreate what was an organically grown neighborhood? I mean, that's a really good question, and one I don't necessarily have the answer for. So anyway, those are the things I kind of wanted to cover today. So we talked a little bit about the toll gate end of the Blue Water Bridge. We'll go look at the actual bridge and maybe talk a little bit about its construction in another video. And we talked about where London's Dairy was. This one was kind of hard to do because we talked a lot about buildings that aren't there and that are just now a field. But that's an important part of our city's landscape and something that's worth talking about and thinking about. I will be very interested to see what happens to that area. So thanks for coming along. It is a beautiful day. I heard it might get a little rainy this afternoon, so if you do want to go on a walk today, I'd recommend to do it sooner rather than later. It is nice and sunny. It's about 40-45 degrees, so it's a good day to have one of those socially distant walks. Again, thanks so much for coming along with us. If you've joined us somewhere in the middle, again, my name is Andrew Kircher with Port Huron Museums. We've been doing these field trips all over the city. If you've got an idea of where we should go next, throw it up in the comments. I'd love to read it. I really love seeing everyone's responses and stories and memories that this jogs out of them. That's really nice to read. Hopefully other people enjoy that as well. And we're going to keep these up as long as we've got places to visit and nice out. Although I've got a little bit more research to do in the next couple of days, so I might actually take a day off sometime in the next couple of days. So don't be alarmed if you don't see me one day. I got to get back into the books and pick out a couple more places myself. So if you like what you see, throw a like on the video, share it with your friends, comment, and you can always support Port Huron Museums by going right to our website. We'd love to have you as a member today. It's a great way to support local history and more content like this. You can find that at our website, phmuseums.org. And with that, I'll let you go explore the history in your own backyard. Thanks for coming along.